morning, Patriots. Welcome back to This American Sunrise. Beautiful look at those cherry blossoms there over by the Jefferson Memorial.
It's a pretty swamp, and I have to tell you, there's no swamp creatures here at CPAC.
Isn't that like
Not
an
yet.
oxymoron, a pretty swamp?
It is a pretty swamp.
Yeah, well, the swamp has some pretty elements, and then it's got some ugly elements. But we're going to try to focus on you, Real American Voices, and basically we the people here at CPAC 2023. Julio Gonzalez coming up talking about the Biden economy, Bidenflation, and all of the rest of it, and how you can help your family deal with all this. But first, let's go over to our buddy Terrence Bates. He has a young Real American Voice here at CPAC. Terrence?
Ed and Karen, I'm live from the set right next to your set. You talked about Real American Voices, but sometimes those voices are even better on print. My next guest, Cooper Guyon, is one of those people, best-selling author. Tell us about your book.
Yeah, so when I was 15 years old, I'm 18 now, I wrote a best-selling book called Our Broken Nation, a 15-year-old's Case to Save America. It's essentially about, that we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're Americans first, and we need to put our country first. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to heal our broken nation.
As a freshman now in college, what inspired you to write that book? What inspired you to say, you know what, I need to say something about this?
Our country's in a bad state right now, and even in 2020, it was divided, and I wanted to see our country unite. And at the end of the day, the only way we can do that is put parties aside and put country first. And that's what President Trump was speaking, is putting America first. And it just made sense to me. And I was passionate, and I wanted to write about it.
How important is it, in your estimation, to have young voices like yours as part of this broader conversation about conservatism and moving our country forward?
I think it's the most important thing for our movement is to reach the young people and to be able to say that we're engaging young people and to give them a voice and a platform, just like y'all are doing right now. Because, at the end of the day, the Democrats are reaching to the young people, and patriots need to start reaching towards young people as well.
Cooper, last question. What are you hoping to come out of this CPAC 2023 conference?
I'm hoping we find unity in the party, and that in 2024 we can unite behind whoever the Republican nominee is, and that the ground for that is set here today, and we hear some great patriot speakers.
Cooper Guyon, we appreciate you being here with us this morning. The future is bright, Ed and Karen. I'm going to have some more headlines coming your way here in just a little bit, but now let's get back to you.
I love it. I think the future is bright, and let's bring in a friend, a patriot. His name is Julio Gonzalez. He runs Engineer Tax Services. Put that mic up closer so they can hear you.
Yeah,
Good morning,
thank you.
first of all.
Good morning.
So great to see you. He's got a great American dream story we'll get to in a moment. But let's talk about the economy. That's your specialty. We just heard that young patriot say, we got to get this country back. We got to unite the Republican Party. How do you do that here at CPAC, at least the seeds of it, the beginning of it? Because Biden is giving the Republicans so much material, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Inflation, all these things hitting American wallets. It's difficult to raise a family in America right now. And that should really propel Donald Trump and some of the other patriots here. Yeah. Because Biden has, in 2 years, has done so much to destroy the country.
Well, in 2017, we passed the tax reform, and ultimately we brought down the rates, the tax rates, so that when you're a small business owner, you're a family, you're keeping more money, right?
Biggest tax cut in history.
Biggest tax cut in history. And why was that important? Because that partnership you have with the government should be a good one, not an onerous one like we come from Cuba and all the Latin American countries where it's so onerous that you can't create jobs, you can't invest in yourself. You basically invest in a socialistic society. And we're going back to that. No business would have this much debt on the books. No business can operate on that. But now Biden is saying that if we have this much debt, this is an excuse to raise income taxes. And this is something he said he wouldn't levy on the middle class, lower middle class. But this is his excuse now. I've created so much debt, we're going to have to raise income taxes for everyone to pay it back. And this is
Stephen
just
Moore had a column. We had him on the show a couple days ago. He calls Biden the $6 trillion man because, to your point, that's how much debt in 2 years he's added, all this spending.
And how do you pay it back? You raise taxes. That's his way of doing it.
And you hire 87,000 IRS agents to go ahead and police those taxes on the American people. What a stark contrast to where we were.
Him and Obama, when they were in office, Biden as vice president, they did the same thing. Right when they came into office, they hired all these IRS agents, hundreds of thousands of them. They disbanded that unit 9 months later because it didn't work. It didn't work. They couldn't find these cash flow coming in from cheating people because people don't cheat primarily on their taxes. Very few. And so they disbanded it. They wasted a lot of our country's money, the taxpayers' money. And now Biden wants to go back to something that he put in place with Obama that didn't work. And let's do it again. Let's do something back to the future that didn't work.
And they targeted the Tea Party and all these patriots with programs like that.
Of course they did. But it doesn't work. It didn't work back then. But what happens when you can't get it from the rich like you say you think you can, and it didn't work back then? Then you go down to the lower and middle class because they did that to our clients. They're bringing them in for audits. And why? Because they can't fight it. Right? And with the IRS, you're guilty before proven innocent. And ultimately, you just have to give it back because they don't have the resources. But it's nickel and diming. It doesn't pay back the debt created by hiring all these people.
And Julio, we've talked before about people that are overpaying in taxes, and that very often when you go into these audits, you find out that people aren't even getting the advantages that they're supposed to get.
Well, they make this tax code we have in our country is made by the lobbyists that influence Congress, right? And so the problem is so many people don't have access to this tax code because it's 1 million pages long, and they continue to add 100,000 pages every year to it. So how can anyone take advantage of it but the big corporations, which they're set up to take it? But you can't, the small guy can't take advantage of that. So they just overpay their taxes because they don't know a better way. They're just trying to be compliant. They're so scared to do anything anymore. My clients are so scared, they want to overpay taxes. They're so fearful. And ultimately, what does that mean? They don't have money to invest in their businesses. They can't grow their local communities. We can't grow our GDP. And ultimately, big corporation government partnership takes over as a socialistic society here.
And that's future wealth for those kids and their grandkids and legacies of these families.
When you're giving 60% of your profits to the government, New York may be higher, California, Illinois definitely higher. Well, how can you grow a business? No small business can start today because they're like, oh, we got 70% taxes. We got regulation. They're going to mandate vaccines for our employees. It's so hard to operate. Now we have higher interest rates because he ran up the debt. He cut down energy to supplement something that doesn't work. And we pay for that.
This is how Americans are treated, hardworking, tax-paying Americans, and yet illegal immigrants come into the country and get all these free benefits. And we talk about this all the time. Protecting America now is the theme here. It's about national security at CPAC, but also border security, protecting the southern border, which Donald Trump did. You alluded to this before. You talked about Cuba, your immigrant story, and saying you don't want to go back to socialism here. But you did it the right way. You came here legally with very little, your family, and here you are now, a great American success story. Talk about that contrast to how Joe Biden seems to want to have just an open border policy.
Well, it's so costly to us, right? So there's so many people that come to this country legally to participate. And when you come here legally, you're also going to contribute through taxes and through the whole system. You're going to pay for your investment to be here. But when you come here illegally, it's the taxpayers paying for that. No return on investment, right? There's no return on investment for our country because they're taking up the taxes
and they're
that
not
we
paying
pay in,
into the system.
And that is what we fled, right? Because what we fled was a similar thing where it's a partnership with big business and the government. And now we just open these borders. I'm going to share a story with you just real quick, okay? So Jimmy Carter basically let in all the prisoners from Cuba, from all the islands, South America, Central America. And where did they come? They came to Miami, where I was growing up in the 70s, right? And what happened? Our economy tanked in South Florida. The drugs came in to our good communities, but poor communities. And what happened? Families had to decide, well, we have no jobs, so now families go work for the drug lords and go into the gangs. And that's because he let them in. And it's either drugs or going to work, but the companies move away when the society and the community gets that bad. And so ultimately now you're forced to work for the gangs. There's ultimately our community still in Miami has never recovered from those days. 40 years later, we're still paying back for what Jimmy Carter did. And it's the same thing again. And it's just horrible.
And you think about the impact that may last for generations, to
Absolutely, yeah.
Julio Gonzalez, a great American success story. Thanks for sharing some
Appreciate
time with
it.
us.
Thank you.
Another